Welcome to Talk Travel with Heather Tate, North Mississippi's podcast for savvy travelers. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is a weekly podcast that airs every Monday on the Shark 102.3 FM radio station based in Ripley, Mississippi, and is then released as a podcast. Travel advisor and travel enthusiast Heather Tate of Whimsical Destinations gives listeners expert travel tips curated through the years of personal and professional experience. By clicking subscribe, you'll have a new travel tip to add to your collection delivered to your podcast library every Monday. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is brought to you by Sun Bear Studio. Sun Bear Studio is a boutique recording studio in the heart of Ripley, Mississippi. When you record with us at Sun Bear Studio, we can mix, master, register, and publish your music, your podcast, or your family story. Email us when you're ready at sunbear@jc.media.
This program was recorded at Sun Bear Studio in Ripley, Mississippi.
Good morning, Northeast Mississippi travelers. This is Heather with Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and I'm so excited to share my adventures and tried and true tips with you, whether you are also a seasoned traveler, a hopeful traveler, or currently an armchair traveler, meaning you're going to follow along with us from home for now. This is our 195th episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate. And this week I told you that I was going to share with you spring in San Antonio. Now, we went a few weeks ago, my husband Logan and our two boys, London and Christian, ages 13 and 9. We went for our spring break trip, but you definitely don't have to limit San Antonio to spring break. But I'm going to share with you a little bit about the weather, what we could do, and I will tell you this. If you want to go any time of year, just take a look at the normal climate because it tends to be hotter than we are in the summer. So some of the things that we did very comfortably in the spring, which I feel like you could do even right now, and then later on in the fall, you may not want to do peak summertime. But for spring break, it was fantastic. So something to keep in mind for maybe a fall break trip or next spring, because the only other time I've ever been to San Antonio, coincidentally, was also for a spring break trip. That was 15 years ago. It was my very first time to go to San Antonio. It was not Logan's. He's now been 3 times because he went on a family vacation. I think he went late spring, early summer for his first time. But we drove. Every time I have been to San Antonio, now I have driven, and so has Logan. It's a long drive. I'm not going to lie. It's about 14 hours, I think, with, give or take a few stops for, food and refueling. We broke the trip up on the way down, but on the way back, we did it all in one day. So is it possible to drive in one day to San Antonio from the Tupelo, Northeast Mississippi area? Yes, it is. But you're going to buckle in, take some snacks. It's going to be a long day. On the way there, we stopped in Waco. And you may know of Waco from the Silos, Chip and Joanna Gaines. I wanted to go to Magnolia Table, but it wasn't on the agenda to be able to go. On the way down, we happened to be staying at a Comfort Inn and Suites in Waco. We found it as we were going down because we were just going to grab somewhere really quick for the one night because we were taking this trip in little segments. We had our night there that we were going to stop, hopefully, but we were going to try to make it to Waco. And then the next night, we were going to stay in the JW Marriott San Antonio Hill Country because Logan had stayed there before. On a work trip and said it was absolutely amazing and wanted us to get to experience it for one night. And then we were going to check into our hotel where we were staying in San Antonio for the rest of the trip. So when we were in Waco and we were at the Comfort Inn Suites, we woke up the next morning to leave. We were going to drive through Hill Country, and I managed to talk the boys into going on a wild goose chase for me to find some Texas bluebonnets. But I looked across the street from our hotel, and there was the Magnolia Table. And I thought, wait a second. I thought the Magnolia Table would be located closer to the Silos. We're not on that side of Waco. Turns out the restaurant Magnolia Table is not by the Silos. It's in the other part of town. So then I was like, I really want to go here. They're closed on Sundays, so that wasn't going to work. And I thought, all right, next time I'm in Waco, Magnolia Table is going to be on the itinerary for sure. So as we're driving, I got in a little bit of a heated battle with my navigator. Now, I'm chief navigator. Logan's the driver. But I would say, first mate navigator is London. And he wanted to go through Austin because he loves all things transportation, loves the interstates, and wants to see, businesses, new businesses, developments, and that kind of thing. Well, I like the country rambling roads. So we really kind of butt heads when it comes to our itinerary most of the time. But if I'm just trying to get to a destination, then I let him choose because, the interstate's usually the fastest way, but it's usually not the prettiest way, is it? And I thought, we're not in a rush. We can't check in till this afternoon. It's looking a little overcast. It was surprisingly cool. You know how we got that cool front at the beginning of spring break? Well, San Antonio got it too. And it was much cooler than they were used to. And we were just hoping we were going to have some pretty spring days later in the week. But those first 2 days were predicted to be cool and rainy. So I'm like, there's no point in hurrying up to get to the resort with a beautiful lazy river and water park and pools because it's cool and rainy. So might as well see some things along the way. So I will not, take up a lot of time explaining how I had to, argue my point why we wanted to go see the Texas Bluebonnets. But we ended up going to Fredericksburg after all. And I will just tell you, Fredericksburg, Texas is one of those destinations that now I know I need to go again, whether it's a couple's trip, a girl's trip. Definitely, I think it would not be a family trip because the boys gave me such a hard time going to see my Bluebonnets this time. But I think it's one of those destinations that it just wasn't on my radar because it's a little far away for a weekend trip. I get it. But from Tupelo, you could fly into Dallas, right, nonstop, rent a car, and then you're maybe 3 or 4 hours away from the hill country. The wheels were turning. You can stay in a wine barrel. I mean, if you threw a rock in hill country in Texas, you're finding a winery and that's as far as I can throw a rock. There was a winery on like every couple of miles. Some of them, one winery and vineyard ran into the next one. So by the time we got to Wild Seed Farms, I'm like, where has this been all my life? How did I not know about the Texas hill country? Because it's a long drive for a weekend. But now I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Like, this is why when people say you go to San Antonio, make sure you spend a day in the hill country, but you could make that a trip in and of itself. So now I'm really interested. You can also fly nonstop, I believe, from Memphis to San Antonio, I think on Southwest. So I'm also interested in that because, like I said, for a weekend, it would be a rough weekend. Too long to drive it. But if you're going to fly it, it's possible. Okay, I digress. So we go to Wild Seed Farms. I get to see my Bluebonnets. They were just starting to bloom. Really, they are more popular end of March, beginning of April, right? That is when the wildflowers really take off in Texas Hill Country. So I was a little early, being in mid-March, but we still saw some. So I got to take pictures. I got to say that I saw them, but I want to be back to see them in all their glory. I even saw some on the side of the road. So the early bluebirds I got to see, but the main fields I did not. So again, it's a start. We went to Wild Seed Farms. We walked around. We went just down the road to a place where they had homemade peach ice cream and saw some more flowers there. So we had a beautiful day. We went the back roads. We made it to the Marriott. What a fantastic resort that is. Like, if you've been to the Marriott in Muscle Shoals, that gives you a taste of what this Marriott, the JW Marriott San Antonio Hill Country is. I would definitely recommend combining a trip if you're going to San Antonio and you want the history, right? You want something that's a little different. Like maybe you go to Florida every spring break, or maybe you go down to the coast, or maybe you've done Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge or even Branson and you want something different. San Antonio should be on your list. You've got amazing food, history, culture. And then you have beautiful biking trails. And like we experienced amazing resorts where they have a water park and a lazy river, and they're heated year round. So that was what was fantastic. So you don't have to wait for the summer because, again, it's going to be really hot in the summer. That's something that you could do in April or in May or for fall break. Keep it in mind. Really great option. So we ended up getting to enjoy the water park the following day because the sun came out a little bit. It was really foggy when we first woke up, but they're like, the water park's open, it's heated. Christian and I decided to hit some slides and take a couple of laps around the lazy river, and we had a great day. And by the end of the day, we were only like an hour away from San Antonio. So we went to the Ilion Hotel and Spas where we stayed. It was not on Riverwalk. It was about 20 minutes away. But it was right by Six Flags. Now, we didn't go to Six Flags because, again, I had told the boys, like, we're doing some cultural experiences. They didn't even think they were going to an NBA game, which they ended up getting to do later that week. But they had the water park that we were getting to do at the beginning of the trip. And so I told them, I was like, we're here to experience some culture and to see more about the history of San Antonio, which my boys really enjoy. So they were along for the ride. So that night, we decided, all right, let's go find a really good, authentic Mexican restaurant here in San Antonio. And we went to La Fonda, which is an award-winning, staple in San Antonio. When I say it had everything on my list, location, the ambiance, both inside and outside. I love dining al fresco. The weather was perfect. There were lights in this gigantic oak tree. I believe it was an oak tree. Lights everywhere. There's huge outdoor patio with some little fountains and statues, but the tree was center stage with the lights. Food was amazing. I even asked what they recommended, as a vegetarian dish, and there was vegetarian enchiladas, and our server said that it was his favorite dish on the menu, even though he wasn't a vegetarian. So Christian and I both ordered that, as we're both vegetarians, and we agreed it's the best meal we've ever had. Mexican restaurant. I mean, it was fantastic. And Logan and London both ordered something different. Theirs was great. We had churros for dessert. Best churros I've ever had. I've had churros in California, and I will say these churros were the best. So we started off the trip in San Antonio. We're like, if all the food is this good, I still say that was probably the best food that we had the whole trip, and I really wanted to go back, but there's so many other places on our list that we wanted to go that we did not make it back this trip. But the next trip, number one on my list, is La Fonda. After that, we did get to experience so much of the Riverwalk. The weather was great for it. We took your touristy boat ride on the Riverwalk, and 100%. If it's your first time, or if you're going with people and it's their first time, you've got to do it. You just have to. So imagine, the Riverwalk to me it did have an Amsterdam, Venice kind of feel. That's what it was meant to be. But here's what's interesting: they almost paved it all over in the 1960s when they were getting ready for the World Fair, and then they stopped it, and they're like, no, what if we did this instead? So I cannot imagine the impact it would have had if they had just paved that beautiful area of San Antonio over instead of really nurturing it and developing it. It's a beautiful place to walk, to ride bikes, to take a boat ride, to people watch. We had gelato. We had really good Mexican food. Yes, there's some touristy places that you're going to see, but we went to a place called, I believe it's called Iron Cactus, also delicious. So we had great food, and that had been highly recommended. Perfect location. We can watch the boat sail by. So it's great for families. I could see, anniversary couples going to the Riverwalk, and I can see the advantage of staying on the Riverwalk where you could just walk around as much as you wanted because it's a very walkable area. But we didn't have any problems driving our car there. We parked in a parking garage. We actually went to an interactive art exhibit. Now, that's going to be something I'm going to have to share more about in a future podcast, but it's called Hopscotch. So if you want to get a head start, look it up. But it is like art come to life. So imagine glow in the dark ball pits and psychedelic shadows and music and sound and a bouncy trampoline, all with art installations, and you kind of have an idea of what hopscotch is. So it was really good with kids, because if you tell kids you're going to an art museum, they may not jump for joy, but if they're literally going to get to jump on a trampoline, then they may change their mind. So it was a great compromise. We got art, but it was very interactive, and it was fun and had some fantastic pictures. So we did the whole Riverwalk experience with the boat ride and the restaurant and the people watching and the gelato and the taking the pictures on the bridge, Selena's Bridge. And so it was beautiful. We went to the Alamo, which one has to do when you go to San Antonio. I was prepared for it being smaller and feeling a little anticlimactic from what you would expect it to be because there's so much of the downtown that's built up around it. But I will say, I think it's really coming into its own because they just got a major donation with some artifacts. And they're building on to that area where they're going to have more than just the building itself, the mission itself. You're going to have more artifacts that you'll be able to see very soon. So that's something I'd like to go back for. And again, it is free admission to walk in, to tour. The oldest wall in Texas is there, part of the Alamo. And we learned about the history. We learned that it was originally the Valero mission. London was really interested in that because he knew of the gas stations called Valero, and now he knows the connection. So just think, when you travel, you can learn even more about things that are closer to home. You start to see connections with things. And so that's what I love. Like, I love that my boys notice things that I don't notice, and they, pick up on it. And then I was really excited about the experience that we were going to have where we were going to bike ride to the missions. Now, let me say this. I started off after doing some research. I'm like, oh, we can bike these. We can do all the missions in one day. And Logan was like, I don't think we can do them all in one day. They're about 2.5 miles apart. There's 5 of them. I know we've already been to the Alamo, but that's going to be for a long bike ride day. And I'm like, no, we can do it. And then Christian really wanted to do the e-bikes. And I was like, no, it's supposed to be very flat. It's part of the experience is the riding the bikes. Well, let me just tell you, I ate my own words because the boys never had to stop. I had to stop a couple of times and push my bike up the hill. As beautiful as it was and as much fun as we had, by the end of it, I was like, oh, I should have gone with the e-bike. Christian was right. Or maybe I just need to be in better shape the next time I go biking. But we had a fantastic experience. Did we go to all 5? No, we missed the last 2. But we got to go to 3 of the 5. So I'm counting that. And we got to rent bikes there, went right on the trail. It was along the river, beautiful. We were able to bike to another Mexican restaurant. Notice the trend. We ate a lot of Mexican food. But we also went to an all-you-can-eat sushi restaurant that I found for Logan. He was very excited about that. And we went to an Italian restaurant that had a viral Italian dish that they poured melted mozzarella on top of your eggplant parmesan or your chicken parmesan. Fantastic. Have pictures and videos of that on our Facebook group, Heather and Logan Tate Whimsical Destinations. We went to some other favorite moments. We went to the Tower of Americas, which is like a Space Needle in San Antonio, and it's actually taller than the Space Needle in Seattle, even though it's not as famous. It was built for the World's Fair. We went to the Japanese Gardens, which we had been to before. When we went to visit friends in San Antonio, they recommended it. It's a free experience and absolutely beautiful. It feels like you're walking into another world, something that you might find on another planet or in Star Wars. And it's the Japanese Gardens with waterfalls and stone bridges, and it's free. So many fantastic experiences in San Antonio. That's why I think it really makes for, your unusual spring trip, right? Something a little off the beaten path for what most of Northeast Mississippians tend to do. So put it on your list. Again, I told you a few weeks ago that we went to a Spurs versus Nuggets game to end our trip. So we went to our family's first NBA game all together. It was a lot of fun. And so we had a lot of favorite moments. The boys would end up saying that their favorite 2 things from the entire trip were the bike rides and the NBA game. So they like doing things. And that's the thing with kids, they want the experiences, not just going and looking at the sites, but they were more excited to do the sites when we could incorporate an activity with it, right? So with doing the mission trail, which I thought was amazing, but by biking instead of driving our car from mission to mission, like the boys were the perfect age for that. They could hold their own. I'm the one that needed the e-bike, but I would definitely do it again. They can just pedal, and I'm going to have my e-bike for going up the hills. And I think it'll be a win-win. Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate. Life is a great adventure, but it is what you make it. Take the trip, make those memories. You won't regret it.
This show is made possible by JC Media, LLC in Ripley, Mississippi. JC Media owns the Shark 102.3 Classic Rock FM radio station where the show is hosted, and Sun Bear Recording Studio where the interviews are recorded. We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes, Google Podcast, or Amazon Music, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That email is theshark1023@gmail.com. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app or stream episodes online at shark1023.com/podcasts. Today's episode was produced by Melinda Marsalis. It was edited by Rick Williams and engineered by Chris Marsalis. The podcast technician is Joyce Grady.